Hi everybody. My project is called Grow in the Snow. Can we? Um, my project is focused on optimizing year-round passive solar greenhouse designs. My name is Shannon Muchel-Knaus. I'm a mechanical engineer and owner-operator of Wayward Springs Acres in Aurora, South Dakota, where we get a lot of snow and quite a bit of cold. This is part of a research project funded through SARE, and you can follow my farm page on Facebook if you want more updates and interested in how things are going. My system uses what's called a climate battery. The basic function of a climate battery is to store the excess daytime heat that a greenhouse gets for use later. So the first stage is during the daytime we have a lot of sun. Even in the wintertime we get quite a bit of sun in our area, and it will easily overheat a greenhouse. So instead of dumping that heat outside, the system uses a network of tubes, a heat exchanger that goes under the ground, blows air, hot air goes down, and then when it comes back out, it's basically the ground temperature. And then that ground below the structure is insulated so that that heat stays within that area. And then when the nighttime comes or cloudy days occur, you can then blow the cool air in your greenhouse back through the ground to warm it up and to get heat without adding any propane or other fossil fuel heat sources, just the electricity to run the fans that circulate the air. Okay, I'm going to cover how the system performed for 2020. I just finished construction on January 1st and started collecting data at that point. The solid dark line here shows the greenhouse air temperatures, with the green, with red and the blue here being the daily high and low temperatures that occurred, and the dotted line shows our outdoor air temperatures and the daily extremes. So the coldest point that I had throughout the whole year in the greenhouse was 29.1 degrees Fahrenheit. I used no backup heat, no other heat sources, so I wanted to capture how the system would perform on its own. You can see in late February, temperatures were getting pretty high. That's when I started to use the roof vents for cooling. They kick in at 90 degrees Fahrenheit open and let out excess heat. The system was able to kick in and do more heating once the fall came around. I had the thermostat maintaining 60 degrees Fahrenheit for quite a while, up through late October. Then in the beginning of November there, I had to set the thermostat to 50 degrees because it was starting to get colder out and we weren't getting as long as sunny days to keep the storage system fuller. And I was able to maintain 50 degrees way up until the middle of December, when then I set it to 45. So with that, I was able to harvest ripe tomatoes up until Christmas time, which is pretty miraculous for not using any sort of outside heat source. The total cost for operation for 2020 was $131 for the electricity cost to run the fans throughout the whole year. Kind of summarizing the amount of heating and cooling, I was tracking this throughout my project. And you can kind of see some of the key points there with how many kilobtu the system was heating in red and how much it was cooling in blue. I threw in kind of a reference there for a propane tank, holds 433 kBtu as a reference. So that would be a few days of heat as this was running at. When the ground was cool in the springtime, you can see the blue lines there are quite long. We were able to get a lot of cooling out of the system. Once summertime came around, it still provided a decent amount of cooling, but not nearly as much because the ground below the system was saturated with heat. But that meant that when fall came around, we had plenty of heat to withdraw from the system to meet demand until through December. A couple of key findings that I had throughout the project. The tube spacing for the heat exchanger I built at 24 inches. I'd recommend doing that closer, maybe 14 inches. That would allow the system to store heat faster. Found the sunlight is very strong for a short period of time in the winter, and so too much heat has to be lost by opening the vents. So If the tubes are closer together, it would be able to store the heat faster, and you would have to lose as much. And then I also had the intake vents for the heat going into the climate battery going up to the roof. What I found was that the temperature up there was not as high as temperatures lower to the ground. So I did a study for a period of time where I measured the air temperature at a few different heights. You can kind of see that here. So at 1 foot above the ground is 0. When we get 4 foot above the ground, we actually get to the highest temperature that I measured, which is about 3 degrees above the ground temperature on average. And then as you go up, you wouldn't gain any more heat. There wasn't really temperature stratification because the airflow was sufficient in the system. So I changed that to have the intakes coming in at about 6 foot level and got warmer air going into the climate battery to get better heat storage. If you have any questions, please contact me for more information. I have several webinars about this project that were recorded, and I could email you links to those. My email address is here, or if you want to, go ahead and follow us on Wayward Spring Acres on Facebook. I post pictures about the project and how things are going. Thank you for your time today.